Welcome back to the Future Self podcast. Welcome to season 3, episode 6. An episode with this fucking giggly one over here. An episode today with my long-term client, Zoe. Someone that I have seen change, fucking hell, in ways that I wouldn't even be able to describe. I've seen a young woman that wasn't so much looking after her future turn into such a woman now that's doing so much for her future self, setting up so many boundaries and systems, and yeah, it's fucking unreal. But thank you for tuning in. Episode 6. If you're on YouTube, I fucking appreciate you. And if you're listening on Spotify, thank you so much. But let's get into it. Welcome.
Thank you.
We'll see how long you can last without giggling, all right? Okay. So I wanted to start out this episode doing something a little different. Something I haven't done before, and it's just asking some rapid fire questions. So I told Zoe before we started, I don't want her to think too much. I just want her to kind of answer what comes to her mind. I want her to just give the truth, not try and articulate it in a way that sounds something different than just what the natural answer is going to be. So you ready? Okay. So I'm going to ask these, and then you can just give a short answer if you want. If it's one word answer, that's great. If you want to explain a little bit, you can. And then if you give an answer that I want to probe or question a little bit more, I'm going to. And then if you're interested in my answer, you can ask me the question back. Okay? But we'll start out a little bit quicker. So the first question is something that makes you smile.
Old people.
Something that makes you sad.
This sounds so weird, but disabled dogs. The first thing that came to mind.
I mean, if it makes you sad, fair enough.
Disabled dogs.
Something you're grateful for.
My family.
What makes you the most happy right now?
My family.
Why?
Because I have all of them, and because I get to spend time with them.
Okay, I like that. What's a hard thing to tell friends?
The feeling's not reciprocated.
Ooh, explain that.
I guess having to tell people that they're in a situation that they feel one way about, but it's very obviously not that way, and telling them that they're making the wrong decision.
Interesting on that point. That's a friction I experience a lot with coaching, where I hear someone say something almost in defense of another person or as a semi-projection of how they want someone to be acting. So I'll ask a question and they'll give the answer of, oh, they did this to me, but, you know, it's because of this, this, and this, or it's all good though because I'm in control. And the interesting thing is I don't always pick it up because people need to find things out naturally on their own. You can't always give the answers to people. And one of my most favorite situations is not always picking it up because sometimes that can create friction to start off with. But then when they talk about it down the line, in your own or in my own moment, I think, yeah, like that's what I thought about it. Or if we do talk about it initially, they don't say you were right, but they acknowledge I understood how you were thinking at the time. I don't have any specifics, but we have situations and experiences like that together within your journey along the line.
Yeah, we do.
Which is interesting. Worst exercise.
Oh. Worst exercise. Bulgarians.
Why?
I just don't like them. They're so hard. I just don't like them.
Worst exercises normally are rated because they're the hardest, and the hardest are normally what brings the best return.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Best exercise.
Oh. Shoulder press or hip thrusts?
Why?
Hip thrusts just because I love them.
Yeah.
Shoulder press, I don't know. It's like the most rewarding for me. I don't know why.
It was one of the most scary for you initially.
It was. Yeah. Yes. It still is. Maybe that's why I like it so much.
Okay, so overcoming something. Proudest achievement?
Ever? Okay. Me now, I suppose.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one. Okay. What's something you've always wanted to pick me up on?
Oh, God. That's scary. Okay. Sometimes you're a bit scary.
Okay.
That's probably
In what sense?
in like a
that.
controlling, scary sense.
Explain that.
I get scared when you find out that I drank on the weekend and I feel like you're going to be angry at me.
Is it normally just tied to drinking or going out?
Or like I didn't eat overly well. I get scared. I'm like, oh, he's going to hate me.
Do
That's
you-
probably not a you thing either. That's probably my insecurity projection fear.
That, I was going to further that. That is such an unreal pickup of that, which is, it's a fair enough point. I don't like people drinking because I know what it does for their mental health, or if they get sick, or if it throws them off, or if they lack motivation. But I love that. I was going to question, do you get scared of my opinion because my opinion is naturally or actually what you think yourself? Or is my opinion something that's given you the truth of the situation that you knew? So if I express not necessarily deep disappointment, but hey, you probably could have done better, I feel like personally you knew that. And that's why hearing the truth can be a bit daunting or a bit scary with that. Right or wrong?
Probably correct.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. If you were given a box of everything you ever wanted, what are you looking for first? So they may be things you have now or things that you want in the future. You're given a box of everything you want, you've ever wanted. What are you going to look for first?
My first thought is really shallow. But it was money. That's the first thing that came to my head.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
That was the first thing that came to my head.
What's the hardest change you've made?
I think learning to genuinely like and back myself.
What makes you confident that you do that now? How can you sit here and say that that's a change you've made and you know that you act that way now?
Because the opinion that matters most to myself now is mine. And I used to be controlled by a lot of like external opinions, and now they don't faze me as much. Like they do to an extent. I feel like they do everybody, but I have a very like strong sense of self now. Like I can gas myself up and I believe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not just a portrayal that I put up in conversation or when I feel insulted to like defend myself. It's just like an everyday attitude that I now have.
Do you know when the switch between faking that and that being the genuine truth happened? Can you recall that moment or that time period within your journey?
There wasn't like a moment. It was over like a long period of time and work and like confronting myself with situations and going from like hating my own company to enjoying it. And it was just like a very long and like difficult time that then one day I just came out of. You know what I mean? Like there was no, I think about this a lot, and there was just no defining moment. I just one day realized that all of it was worth it, and now I'm here. I'm just on the other end of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I always said this in the last episode, and I've said it a few times, that I don't think the human experience is unique. I feel like we all experience pretty much the same thing, just through different actual experiences. Because I remember when I first started at Athletic Culture, which is the gym I currently work at now, when I first started there, the level of faking it till you make it I went through and I did myself was fucking astronomical. I remember I'd post things about making money on the stock market and how training's going and things I was buying and all these successes, and they weren't necessarily false or they weren't lies, but they were really stretched portions of the truth, just to have people think that I was doing better than what I was, or that other people's opinions didn't matter so much. So again, it's so interesting that everyone, I feel like, experiences the same thing. That was your kind of version of it. This is my version of it. Everyone listening would have their own version of it too. Like they definitely sit there and there's definitely some things that they're not necessarily being truthful with. The next question, you can think about this a little bit if you want, but not too long, because anyone that's listening on Spotify just listens to static. Okay, so anyone on YouTube, they can watch it, but Spotify is just quiet.
It's pressure. Okay.
If you had one wish,
Oh my God.
and it could only be for another person, what would it be?
Like a specific person? or just a person?
Take the question
Okay.
however you want. You could make one wish, but it had to be for another person, what would it be?
Peace.
For who?
Well, when the first thing that came to my head was my family or my close friends.
Yeah.
And if there was one thing that I could wish on all of them across the board, it would be peace.
To devil's advocate that answer, your journey has had hostility and friction and judgments, and you're definitely someone now on social media within the local scale like I am that people know or they respect or they're interested in. Your journey hasn't been filled with peace yet. It's allowed you to be who you are now. So would you not want people to go through hard experiences to allow them to be a better person?
If I could wish them peace without having to put them through the hard experiences to get there, I would.
Yeah.
But life doesn't really work that way. But it's a wish.
Okay.
So my wish isn't realistic. That's
Fair.
just the wish.
No, true. That's fair. Do you hold guilt or regret towards your journey not being peaceful?
No.
Okay. It's a very interesting, it's an interesting contrast though between the two.
It is. But I also feel like the people that I wish peace for are all people that haven't had it because they've like been through the hardships. So I sort of wish for them to come out of the other end of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know anybody sheltered to a point where I'd wish for them to go through something hard to like open their eyes.
Okay.
I just wish them all peace.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. They were my rapid fire questions. Okay. So that was just break the ice, settle you into it a little bit, get a few quick replies. Anyone who's tuning in, I would actually like it if you answered some of those too in the comments or if you shoot me a DM and let me know. But I think it'd be good if you go through and just answer some of them because sometimes asking yourself questions, even if they're not that relevant to your life or they're just not that realistic or even they're a little bit, airy-fairy, I think can be really good. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want you to explain a little bit of who you were and who you are now. Sorry, who you were to clarify when I met you, like when you first started entering into the gym. We'll take it back to that.
I was someone who I think had a very little sense of self, and my life was consumed by pretty much the actions of everybody around me. So I had no way of coping. I had no way of like filtering my thoughts or controlling myself and my tendencies. And I got very fixated on things. And I think one thing that I think of now a lot is like I used to get very paralyzed by like my thoughts and like my anxieties and stuff like that. So when something would make me anxious, which was most things, I just wouldn't cope. Like I'd be in bed for days and like my eating habits were horrible and I had massively horrible like habits. Like as you would know, I used to like smoke and drink and I used to do all these things to try and cope, and I just was just in this state of like paralysis and I couldn't move forward. And everything I wanted for myself, I thought I wanted for myself was what I thought would make other people like me more. Like I came to you wanting a fat ass. That's what I wanted because I thought it would like appease a wider demographic. Like nothing I wanted was for myself because I had no sense of self. I didn't have the right priorities. I had very little self-respect. I just didn't have, like I was so lost and I think I was looking in all the wrong places. And like I was obsessive and I couldn't get out of my head, but I didn't even know what was happening in my own head. Whereas I feel like now, like I'm disciplined, I'm consistent, I have a massive sense of self and like I know where my priorities lie. I know what I want, where I'm at. Like I know my positive attributes from my negative ones. Like I know how to like filter my thoughts. I know how to get out of them too. That's like a massive thing that I learned across this whole process was like managing all of my thoughts and my anxieties and stuff like that. I've overcome the majority of like my really bad habits.
Yeah.
And the only thing I really obsess over now is the gym. So I'd say I became a much calmer person too, but also in what I said before, when like I back myself now, I didn't have that before. So where I used to like welcome all of like these criticisms and opinions about me, they don't faze me as much anymore. And I think like the biggest thing was just building a solid foundation within myself that now like I know and trust in.
For anyone listening, that the change in that's badass as fuck, right? It's almost directly opposite. It's gone from black to white. It's a night and day style of difference. And a lot of people would admire that. I'm sure if I have new, younger female listeners or even male or anyone who's tuning in, they would admire that change. But a question they might have is, how the fuck do you do that?
I was actually trying to give this advice to a friend the other day. And I honestly think like it's just a process, and it's just like you always said this to me and I always hated hearing it in the beginning, but it was just getting comfortable with being uncomfortable in situations. And like when I'd be uncomfortable because it'd be a Saturday night and I'd be choosing to stay at home, you know what I mean? Or I'd be choosing not to acknowledge a certain opinion or text message or something like that. And, or, you know, I'd wake up and I wouldn't want to train, or I'd want to eat out, or like the switch from when I used to tell you like these 2 nights I eat fast food every week to I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to cut them out. Like just, I guess, putting yourself through it. Like you can't come out of it unless you go right down through it. And I feel like a lot of people want to skim the surface of like all their demons and all the things that they don't want to face about themselves. And then that's why like they might do it for a little bit. They might train for a month and then they fall off again. But it's like, it's the people that stick with it and go through it even when it's uncomfortable as fuck and they hate it and they're not happy. But like you eventually, it just becomes routine. And like with that, and it's not just like the training, it's everything that comes with it. It's the mentality, it's the connections, it's the community, it's like the discipline and consistency that you're forced to like adhere to. When you come out the other side of all that discomfort, when it's at your worst, when you've had to confront all of the parts of yourself that you didn't want to acknowledge, I think that's when you realize you made all that growth. So there's no real how. It's just like get uncomfortable as fuck, you know?
Fuck, it makes me so proud to hear that, hey?
That's my advice.
Yeah, just knowing what's gone in to allow for that change to happen, knowing how solid you stand on business with those thoughts now, but over the course of time, how much questioning came about those rules or those systems. Why do I have to be uncomfortable? Why do I have to show up and do that? What's the point? How do I go around it? It's just so interesting that I think you acknowledged a great point. You can't get around it. You ultimately have to go through it. Said it on the last episode and I've said it on ones before. That's why I despise fucking challenges. I despise short stints. I despise the style of coaching that's fast weight loss, just getting from A to B. Because getting from A to B isn't actually, I don't think, the journey. It's the things that happen in between. Like you can't move A to B and actually sustain it long term. I think it's A to Z because every letter in between represents something that's important and something that you have to go through for it to be solidified. And it sucks. And I never like saying this because anyone that wants to start out a future self journey or enter into their journey, you don't want to tell them it's hard, it sucks, it's awful, it's uncomfortable. Like truthfully, if I had said that to you when I first met you, when we first had our consult, I know you wouldn't have done it. There's no fucking way. If I'd have explained the things you'd go through, if I'd have said it's going to be uncomfortable, yeah, okay, no worries, I want a fat ass, it'll be uncomfortable. But if I showed you a platter of everything you're going to go through with the mindset you had at that point in time, I personally, and you might disagree with that, and if you do, that's great, I don't think you would have gone ahead with it. And that's why I always tiptoe around it for anyone wanting to start out, how intense it can be. But anyone who's killed it long term, I have so many clients current and past that are still doing what we've worked on. But every single one of those people, such as yourself, have really tackled the shit. Like really gone through the thick of the thick. You went to interject something before and I said you wouldn't have done it. What's your opinion? What's your thought?
Well, what's like interesting about that is I was so massively nervous to do that consult with you Again, not proud of, but it was the reality. I was an avid smoker at the time, and I'd had like 3 on the way to the consult and then 3 on the way out. I was so anxious. And I remember in my head thinking, I'm going to do this for 6 months and that's it. Like, I'm going to have like the little body that I want, and I'm going to go about my life and show off my little, like that. I just remember so like avidly thinking that was my plan. Like, I was going to like do it for 6 months and then train and then be or whatever. And then now I'm here. You know what I mean? And like, I just don't know when it clicked to me that like, I was like, I don't even know when my body changed. Like, I look at myself now and it's like, I don't even notice sometimes. Then I look at myself physically and I'm like, holy fuck, you look like a completely different person. Like, even physically, like I speak differently, I look different. And it's like, I just don't know when the person that was so terrified to even speak to you in person and thought I was only going to like work with you for 6 months is now here like 2.5 years later. You know what I mean? Like, I would definitely have ran away.
It's fucking crazy. I always love looking back on your past update photos or past videos, because I agree. I feel like you have eras or chapters within your journey. There was definitely the start, and then there was the little bits of change, and this is motivating and this is exciting. And then there was some regressions where, I'm, kind of not that motivated. It's getting a bit harder, and you push through that. And then there's just this, seemingly, for me, who's seen it side by side, a step between this Zoe to the one you are now, or even the version of you a year ago. And then that's just transitioned into such a level of depth. So I feel like the start for you was so much learning the process, understanding it, getting used to it, trying to enjoy it. And then you progressed physically fucking heaps. And then you've just continuously to progress on a physical level. But your progressions over the last year have been just of so much depth. And I don't know how to explain that without going over the top. But some people, this is why I don't always like posting highlights of client comparisons of this is where they started and this is where they're at now. Because I could show you photos from where you started to where you're at now. And that's really motivating. But it's so hard to encapsulate your mind where you started to where you're at now, or what you even thought about of tracking to now, or food or movement, or even the factor of, no, I'm not going out on a Saturday, I'm going to the gym. Everyone just brushes that off like, oh yeah, that's not that cool, or that's not that motivating, or, if I see that in a comparison, it's just a whatever. But that's the shit that matters. And there's so much that goes into genuinely not wanting to go out and genuinely wanting to show up for yourself. It's fucking wild. Now, because we talked over this week, you have some questions or some points, and there's some points that you can ask me, but I definitely want to throw them back to you as well.
There's so many.
Yeah, go for gold.
So one of the things I wanted to, I guess, gauge your opinion on was a piece of advice to people who may not realize they're stuck or can't seem to move forward from where they're at.
Oh, fuck. Damn, yeah, I'm going to give the Spotify some static to fucking listen to. No, it's so hard with that, because coming from someone who knows it within themselves and knows what people can do, I would love to say things like real change needs real change. So if you're doing things and it's not changing for yourself, you need to change more. Or if you're doing something that's not working, stop fucking doing it and change what you're doing. Because it's like someone that's on a meal plan. Oh, I've stopped losing weight. It's like, well, yeah, now you got to learn to fucking track macros. Or someone who only wakes up half an hour before they've got to go to work and walks for half an hour. Oh, things have slowed down. Yes, so get up 15 minutes earlier, or lift heavier, or acknowledge the genuine shit that you're putting to the side. So I think real change needs real change, and that's what's avoided a lot in things like challenges, short stints, A to B style goals. A lot of people miss out on that real and that raw and that hard, and that's why things don't change for anyone. I think that's a big one. I think, again, it kind of stems in with it, doing different. Just try different. If what you're doing isn't working, try something else. If you're doing CrossFit and you're not enjoying it, go to a commercial gym. If you don't like the gym and you're wanting to lose weight, just wake up earlier and go for walks. Like doing things that are different to what you're doing, I think is really important. The last one, because there's a fucking million other I could go over or make a point of, because it's everything I do and it's so specific person to person. Understand the power in your choice. A lot of people surrender their control to other things. My friends want me to do this. My partner ordered takeout. My work keeps me back late. I can't on the weekends. There's so much either finger pointing, it's this person's fault I can't, or so much surrender to the control they have to something else. It's actually something I maneuver and work through with every client, because ultimately anything can be valid and validated. Anything could, oh, I couldn't wake up. I was so tired. I went to bed late. That's a valid point. Like, fair enough. That's probably going to be hard to wake up. But then anything can just be black and white. I don't fucking care. Get up. Like, it can be that simple. And that's really hard because a lot of people don't want the reality. You know, it's everything else's problem or everything else's fault. So I think even ownership too. Having ownership in everything that happens, good or bad, is really important, and that can change your reality. I don't even remember the question you specifically asked. So if you want to read it again, go for it, because I actually want to ask it back to you.
It was a piece of advice you'd give to people who may not realize they're stuck or can't seem to move forward.
Yeah, so I want to ask that in a different way. What's a piece of advice you'd give to young girls?
Can I just say something? You know what's really funny? I like hearing your perspective on that and like your interpretation, your response, it just like made me realize why I feel like this dynamic has seen me go so far, and you've been such a facilitator, because what my response would have been, yours is so much more like, it's pretty much just like no bullshit and very accountable, and where I have a much like softer, like, I guess, approach to things, you always just gave it to me straight up. And I feel like that's like when I was stuck and I didn't push myself and I just had that like fluff level of where I was validating things, you just came in and like, well, like, I don't care, like, just do it anyway. And I feel like I hated it at the time, but like hearing you say it made me realize like that's probably why I feel like this dynamic has worked so well, especially for someone like me, because I just needed someone to call me on that, and someone whose opinion I respected. And obviously, because I sought it, like I was working with you as a coach, so I wasn't going to ignore it. I couldn't be stubborn and be like, well, he's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it was very confronting.
I want to add to that as well, just before you give your answer. I've experienced before taking the super soft route. So I'm very understanding with situations to people that need that. You're someone that didn't need it, because if I gave you too much understanding, that created no change for you. And then you didn't get the desired outcome. So that gets you nowhere. Someone that's wanting to become comfortable with the gym, that are throwing reasons to me why they can't get there or why it's not working, I can't say cut the shit. So I'll take a really soft approach. I'll understand, I'll validate their responses. But I've taken the route before where I've validated most of what a client or an individual has said back, and they've gotten fucking nowhere. And a lot of coaches can be in that situation because they're too scared to upset someone. And again, you just need to have the dynamic that I'm here to help you. I'm not going to put you in a position that will fuck you over or that isn't going to be positive for you. Yes, you might not like to hear it. You might not understand it at the time, but that's where that building that trust is so important. It's like the echo chamber of friends. If you have friends that gas up everything you do and every choice and decision you make, I reckon they're dog shit friends. Because I have two ride or die mates, Max and Alec, which I've both done a podcast with, and they call me out on things. And I don't like it at the time. It's like, who the fuck are you to tell me? Or don't tell me that, or let me do what I want to do. But their intentions are of good and only good. And yeah, I think that's really important, that understanding situations, like I've done that with you before, but do you want me to understand every situation as to why you can't get somewhere and then 6 months later you've gotten nowhere? Like, would you not rather want to hear the raw reality of this is what needs to change, put in the work, and then 6 months later you're at that position? Because again, if you just want to hear that echo chamber of what you're doing is the right thing, that's fine. I'm not saying you're a bad person, and I'm not saying you're not going to get a good outcome, but you're probably not going to get the outcome you want because it's going to do fuck all. But again, throwing it back to you, to young girls, what's your piece of advice if they're feeling stuck or lost or unable to move forward?
It was funny when you said real change needs real change. The one I've always had in my head was nothing changes if nothing changes.
Sick.
Which is, they sort of go hand in hand. Yeah. But like genuinely, if you're at a point where even if you don't really realize you're unhappy, but you just feel like your life's going nowhere and it has no substance and like you feel lost and you feel stuck, like nothing's going to change if nothing changes. You know what I mean? And one thing that I feel like I heard it once and it like might seem so like basic or irrelevant to somebody that doesn't understand it, but it's like, what if you can? Because I feel like constantly, especially as somebody who like, you know, when you're young and you're so reliant on the opinion of people around you, you're always like, well, what if it works out like this? And what if people judge me? And what if I can't do it? And what if I fail? And it's like, but what if you can? And I just feel like that's never somebody's first resort. Like, it's not even mine. Like, when that's a big part of how I've found myself getting out of like that thought paralysis is like when I go down this spiral of like, what if I fail? What if it's a waste of time? What if it's a waste of resources? What if people judge me for it? And it's like, but what if you can? And what if it works out? And like, what are you going to say to that? Because you don't know unless you do it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I feel like if you're at a point where you feel stuck, and especially if you're stuck because of where your thoughts are at and where your head's at and where all your anxieties are at, I feel like we're just like, what if you can?
That's so fucking amazing to hear you say that. And that just ties in with who you are now. Like, hearing you answer that question is everything I know that you have worked on to change. The thing with that not being the default thought is humans, based on evolution, are designed to protect themselves, which again, that might be basic knowledge, but we're always going to think of, we are negative biased creatures. If I don't do that, what's the bad outcome? We're always thinking of things that are protective, because I would assume from what I've researched and learned, socially, if you weren't accepted back fucking caveman times, you're kicked out of the tribe, survival of the fittest, you're out, you're fucked. It's about protecting yourself against things. And we've just now evolved it to be a society based on the way life is now, with the shallow things and the little things. But it's so true. Because again, if I had have said all of the changes you're going to make when I first met you, the initial thoughts are, oh, it's probably not going to happen. It would have sounded delusional at the time, but it's not. And even if you have to think with some delusion, I don't want to keep relating back to the last episode, but again, talking about things not being unique. If I had have told myself, oh, you can't achieve what you want to achieve, like, of course you're not going to do it, because every door that was open of potential, slam, 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 slam. You've just shut every door. If you say, yeah, there might be a potential, or I could do it, even if 10 of them shut because the dreams are fucking unrealistic, one of them might stay open, and that just might be the one that you end up walking down. So fucking, yeah, great way you just tied that in. Go.
I just wanted to say one thing.
Yeah.
But even in the sense of like unrealistic, that's been a big thing of mine as well, especially after going to Europe. Like, I used to have all these like dreams and ambitions for myself, but I'd be like, that's not realistic for me. You know what I mean? Like, from where I'm at in life, from where I'm from, like, that's not realistic. But now I'm at a point where I'm like, why not? Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, why not? Like, what makes your circumstances so different that you can't do it, that it's so out of reach? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I want to travel the world, but it's unrealistic. Why not just book a flight? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it went from being so like self-doubting to like now, like if I want to say, you know, I want to be a famous actress, like, why not? Like, someone's going to tell me it's unrealistic, but why? Like, tell me why I can't do it. Like, if I put in the work for it and make a step towards it, why is it unrealistic for me? You know what I mean?
It's so wild that you say that just as a shrug thing now. Like, well, why not? Like, it's no big deal, because it's like, it is no big deal to you now because you're so solid on it. It's like, if I want to achieve something, it's like, yeah, why not? Like, I've done 10 things that people told me I couldn't do, so this is just another thing. Like, why can I not? But again, it just relating back to that why not thought is like a muscle. Like, you're not born with that, and you're not always going to be exposed to that. So someone who's been exposed to opportunity, support, comfort, good family, a good network, they might have that as a default thought because they've been exposed to it. Someone who's grown up with hardship, a thought like that would sound so unrealistic. Like, how the fuck do you just think like that. And you don't just think like that. You train it like any muscle in the gym. You consistently think it, experience it, challenge it, regress from it, get back up, and then do it again. It's just so cool to hear you say things like it's no biggie, but it's just been so much work that's gone into creating it to fucking be that way.
Yeah, it has.
Next question.
Okay.
Go for it.
I was like, I really can't keep elaborating on this point because I'll be here forever.
I love that though. I love, again, it's you ask like one question and then it's just back and forth. Like it just flows a conversation so nice.
This is an interesting question.
Okay.
How do you think like people, like of the public that don't know you, see you?
Yeah.
And then how would you acknowledge that opinion?
Yeah. It's the same. It's the same opinion, I feel like, that has been there since the start. Because when I was 16, I started my own business. When I was 20, moved out of home, bought my first dream car. 21, bought my second dream car. 22, bought my apartment, running this business, doing things that a lot of people aren't doing, working with people, giving advice to 30, 40, 50-year-olds. It's always been that arrogant, cocky, scary, full of himself, just all of those styles of projections that, again, to answer then the second part of how I manage that, it's just learning that it is a projection. People think success is scarce, so they think that there's not enough success to go around. If someone's killing it, it's very rarely met with congratulations. I genuinely am happy for you. You're doing what I can't do. Because no one wants someone to be doing better than them. No one wants to feel like they're second. And everyone thinks that success isn't within an abundance. If you walk into a gym, let's say a typical ego style gym, there's all gym bros where they're one-upping each other. They're ego flexing and all these things. Every single person in that room could be successful, or they could be successful within their pool of what they're doing at the gym. But people don't understand that. So it comes from a projection. Oh, he's arrogant. Well, why the fuck am I arrogant? Am I arrogant because I've been through absolute hell? I've gotten myself out the other side and now I help people? Like, what's arrogant about that? Oh, he's cocky. Well, fucking oath I'm cocky because for the last 5 years, every goal I've set out, I've achieved. Like, I haven't missed one goal because I know how to back myself. So someone who doesn't know how to back themselves would look at me as being cocky. Oh, he's not taking criticism from anyone. He's not questioning himself. He's not taking on, other people's opinions and thoughts. Fuck, he's way too cocky. So I just learned that it's a projection. The thing that upsets me a lot is wanting to only do good and that always being villainized in some way. And it's something that with my psychologist and friends and conversation I really worked on. Because I used to be someone involved in taking drugs, drinking, gossiping, bitching about people, sleeping around, like doing things like that. I was living that type of toxic life and people respected it, thought I was cool, invited me to every event. Fuck yeah, guys, killing it. Now that I'm helping people, running a successful business, not doing anything on the weekend other than the things that soothe me, grow me, and progress me, it's now I'm the villain because you can't control me. You can't message me on a Friday, let's go out and drink, because my response is no, so I'm the bad guy. So without it sounding like I'm a douchebag thinking I'm better than people, I just understand that those making comments might not be able to think the way I think, but also they're just not who I want to surround myself with. Like, again, people, I'm sure to you, and your initial thoughts were he's scary, he's, probably cocky and all those things. And you said before you get scared of my comments, but I feel like you'd only get scared of my comments because you respect my opinion, because my opinion is only wanting the best for you. If you had have taken on who I was from other people's opinions, you probably wouldn't have done that consult. And that consult has opened doors for you to change your life. I think the last point before I ask it back to you, I don't take on advice or opinions from people's lives that I don't want to live myself. So if someone that I don't respect is bitching about another person, their opinion is invalid to me because I don't want to live your life. I don't like how you think. I don't like how you emotionally react to things. So it's not valid for me to trust your opinion because you don't live the way I want to live. So now back to you, unless you have things you want to interject before you give your answer.
No, I think that was all
Yeah.
interesting. I think a lot of people, well, it kind of goes two ways. People that know me now, but like don't know me now, like people that know of me now, but don't know me personally, would think I'm very egotistical and very like self-absorbed. And people, but then there's like the other end of it of like people who knew me before and like have held on to opinions of like that person that I was, and then to this day they still project that opinion onto who I am now. And it's like, well, how do you really say I'm not that person anymore? But the way I like see it now is it's like I genuinely like I've never had this sort of mentality that like, okay, I'm gonna go and try and prove you wrong and try and prove why I'm not who you think I am and why I'm a very different person now, because like I honestly just like feel bad for people, because I'm like, for you to have such strong opinions of me and want to bring me down so much, like there must be such like conflict going on in your head and in yourself, like because no one that's truly like confident in themselves and happy with themselves is going to try and pull somebody else down, you know what I mean? And it's like I genuinely just wish all those people peace now, you know what I mean? Because I feel like internal peace is so hard to see in a lot of people. But I feel like, yeah, it's just at a point where I'm like, the only people, and without this sounding egotistical, but like the only people that can actually drag you down to a level are people that are below you. You know what I mean? And so like the people who have these opinions and are casting these like versions of me, like they're not opinions that are of value to me. Like I have a very select group of people whose opinions I value, like I can count them on one hand. You know what I mean? And like it goes hand in hand with what you said. The reason I'm scared of your opinions or like constructive feedback is because you're one of the people that I respect, and I hate being confronted in the beginning because I'm very like stubborn, and I'm like, don't tell me that. But then I'm like, I know you're right. You know what I mean? But yeah, like I can count them on one hand. And so if you're not on that hand, like I'm not going to value what you say to me, because it's like I have to know and respect somebody enough in order to let their opinion actually shape me in any way, shape or form, because I'm very, whenever I hear something about me, even like with you as someone I do respect, I go very like I'm like, it's like my initial mechanism is to back myself. Like I'm like, no, this is why I'm right.
Yeah.
But there's only a few amount of people that I'll actually like break that down for and be like, no, you know what? Like I'm going to be vulnerable enough to admit that, yeah, I need to do better in this circumstance and I could have done better. But like if you're someone that I don't know in that sense and that I don't respect and that I don't hold value for, you're not going to get past that point. Like it's going to have no impact whatsoever on how I go like in my daily life. You know what I mean? Like it's just not going to have an impact.
I find it really interesting. I would definitely want to do a podcast, either solo or with someone in the future, about the depth level of thought, because there's two levels of thought, to just simplify it. There's on the surface and below the surface. So on the surface, you felt I felt the need to say, well, not to be egotistical or not to be rude. Why the fuck do we even need to say that? Because we have the receipts to not say that, right? So on the surface, people might listen to what you just said and go, yeah, like that sounds bitchy, or she's not going to take on my advice. But if you care enough to think below the surface, you could probably understand that you've been molded by the wrong people in the past. So you're going to be more protective of the opinions of people now. You have receipts for the things that you've created and allowed for. You've had to work so fucking hard for it. So someone's opinion isn't going to tear that down. So on the surface, it could be, yeah, whatever, that was just egotistical, or that's, not viewed in a positive light. But then dive below a little bit with a little bit of care. What you just said makes so much sense. And there's so much understanding behind it. It's like I said with the goal thing, why can you back yourself? And that's so cocky. It's like, well, no, I have the receipts for it. Like I get up 4 a.m., go to bed 7. I work 7 days a week. Like I won't not let myself achieve the goal. So why would I not back myself? And it's that thought process of you have the receipts for the work you've done. So what you just said, yeah, it makes sense.
I have another point. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
this is one of those spitballing moments. on the point of like people thinking, well, you actually know, not people thinking on my brain, you saying you've been molded by the wrong people. It's so funny because I feel like, I don't know what it is, but like, and I feel like even the start of this is going to make, you'll understand what I'm saying. But a lot of people that meet me like off the bat on the surface think I'm sheltered. I get called sheltered a lot. Because they meet this version of me now. And if you actually have a conversation with me, like I'm very lighthearted about things. Like I laugh at everything. You know what I mean? Like I find disabled dogs sad. Like, you know what I mean? And so a lot of people then misinterpret that as I'm sheltered. And it always like baffles me because it's like, it's obviously people that I haven't explained like my whole life story to and my journey, and they don't know everything about me and they don't know the details. So it's like, okay, naturally you're not going to know, but then why am I sheltered? Because I have an optimistic outlook on things, or because like I'm lighthearted, or because like I laugh at everything. You know what I mean? Like, is that why I'm sheltered? But it doesn't bother me as such. It's just interesting to me because I was molded by the wrong people. And it's like, what I was saying before, like I had no sense of self to the point where everything around me molded me. And like I was such a product of my surroundings. And it's like the things that I've like seen and bared witness to and experienced, like if I were to be a living mold and replication of that, I would be like fucking morbid. You know what I mean? Like I would be the most like pessimistic person. But it was a choice. Like it's a constant choice to not be like that and not reflect that and reflect somebody that I actually want to be and not just a product of my environment. So it's just interesting, like, to think that like people think one thing and or like think, you know, she's sheltered or she's egotistical, but it's like, if you want me to sit here and tell you like a whole sob story, like I can, and I'll probably make you feel bad, but it's like, why would I do that? Because I'd make a choice to like, I choose optimism. I choose to wish people peace because it's like, I know, like, why would somebody wish other people peace if they don't know what's on the other end of it? You know what I mean? And it's just like one thing that I really find, I guess, important to talk about, especially when like, you know, on the topic of like, I don't care about opinions, but it's like, it's because I knew what the other end of that looked like. And it's like, I think especially when you let people's opinions of things that are so personal to you, and it's just like, I'm at a point now where it's like, okay, I know what the other end looks like. And I just want everybody to have peace.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the point.
Blind trust with that. So I hope if anyone takes even just one thing from this episode, it's the fact that blind trust can change your life. Like someone could listen to what you say and just not understand it, not know what the other side looks like, but you're a byproduct of that. So blind trust is so important. You had so much blind trust in me. So many of the things I was giving you, it wouldn't make sense, or why would I do that? Why am I having a non-tracking week when I'm trying to put on weight? Like I need a track. Why are you doing that? But it all makes sense now. So having blind trust in, you hear people say all the time, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's like, well, I don't know what that looks like. It doesn't matter. Just trust it and do it, and then you will understand it. Do you have one? Actually, the question style is a little bit different. I haven't done an episode where I've gone on my phone, and I haven't had one where it's more back and forth, but I like so much of how you think and the conversations we've had in our one-to-one sessions. I wanted to make sure that there were some, valuable questions that we'd ask. So what's the hardest part of change?
I had that question too in my list. I feel like the hardest part of change in like an umbrella term is the sacrifice that comes into it. Just because like all the things that, and not even like in a superficial sense, like, okay, you have to sacrifice partying, you have to sacrifice, we don't, but like drinking and, don't drink everyone. Fuck, I lost my train of thought. Wait. No, or like, you know what I mean? Like sacrifice your sleep and wake up early. Like there's all that, but it's all the things you have to sacrifice in yourself too. Like all the like stubborn ideas you have like in yourself. Like even like just sacrificing and like even sacrificing your self-doubt. You know what I mean? Like sacrificing a general term, or like sacrificing relationships that don't serve you or aren't going to serve your future purpose. Like what you said before about having two friends, like that point was 2.5 years ago, I had a very broad group of friends. Now I again can count my close friends on one hand, and I have made all those decisions. Like all the friends I no longer have been like selectively cut off by me because, and not because, oh, like you don't serve my purpose, you don't think like me, like you're out. No, but like people that disrespected me that I would have just tolerated because I'm like, oh, I want all these friends, whatever. I cut off because I was like, you genuinely, you don't respect me and you don't serve like where I'm trying to be in life. So I don't want you in my life anymore. You know what I mean? Like I wish you all the best, but I just don't want you in my life. And I just think sacrifice is such a big part of it because not only do you have to sacrifice the lifestyle you're in, but also the state you're in your own head, because like ultimately it's all of the preconceived like ideas and doubts and like insecurities and anxieties that you have that are going to hold you back in the, like no matter what anybody else says. So I feel like sacrificing that was the hardest part.
Well, you're sacrificing your old self to create your new self.
Yes.
You're sacrificing your old life to now allow your new life to blossom. And this is a cliche one I'd like to give, but it's like how the seasons of the year, you know, you look at a tree and it looks fucking beautiful, but it has to sacrifice how it looks for the rest of the year so the next year it can look beautiful again or even more full or even more grown and developed. So yeah, sacrifice is almost the circle of life. Like
that's what this is for.
Yeah.
That's funnily enough.
Phoenix, yeah?
Yeah.
Part of your branding, isn't it?
Show the people. Yeah.
Actually,
it is.
This is a good cross conversion for anyone on Spotify. Go to YouTube and have a look.
Yes. Come look at my tattoo.
But that's your branding, right?
Yeah, it is.
So mine's the butterfly because I've always viewed it as hard change beauty. So, you know, that's a representation of my life, someone like my mother's life. That was a big reason as to why the butterfly. But the phoenix is literally a big thing. And if you're not educated or updated on what that stands for, you have a post on your social media about it, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, so I'll link that below if you guys want to go over and have a look. But you said, yeah, you have what? 1 or 2 more questions, 1 or 2 more ideas you wanted to go over.
I do. It's my time to shine.
It's so fucked. Every podcast I do is like, I need 2 parts.
Yes.
They need to be, I used to look at podcasts when they go for 2 or 3 hours long and think, why the fuck would you go for so long? And now I just get it, because what used to be a struggle to do 30 minutes, we're now 60 minutes in and it's holy fuck, there's more I want to talk about.
Sorry. I just found this question really interesting. This is one of the ones that I ran out of the shower to write down. Dedicated to the cause. Something you learned from someone else that shaped how you see the world today.
10,000 different lessons. People will not treat you the way you treat them just because you treat them that way. There's a million other things. There's ugly can allow for so much beauty. Like there's so many different things, but that's been my biggest and most relevant lesson of the last year. And I definitely learned that with recent situations, that you can look after and care for someone, give them all your energy, all your time. And just because you do that doesn't mean that's going to be respected or given back. And that's okay. And what I learned ultimately from that lesson is don't treat people the way you want to be treated. Treat people based on the person you want to be. So I've had people I've worked with for years and then they've just upped and left. Or I've had people I've given my all to and then eventually they become my enemy or someone who disrespects me or dislikes me. And that was really hard for me initially, and that really fucking hurt to learn. But I dove deeper and understood that I'm not treating this person with respect and kindness and love because I want that back. I was treating them with that because that's the person I want to be. I think it's been nice you asking a question and then just the opportunity of being able to ask it back. But what would your answer be on that?
I've thought about this for like the past 3 days. There's 2 like that have significantly, I feel like, shaped the way And like such a big part of, I guess, everything in my experience personally has been redirecting how I think. And like, I feel like, you know, it's so easy to sit here and say like, oh, from where I am now, like get uncomfortable, whatever. But it's like, ultimately, if you're at a point, you're like, well, that's not realistic for me. It's like, it literally starts with just changing one thought process.
Yeah, nice.
And it's just like, you build on that, you know what I mean? And even if it's like really uncomfortable in the beginning, like it's just one thought process. But anyway,
that's the stepping stone method ultimately though.
But yeah, like, so along with like the whole, but what if you can, these are two pieces of advice I've heard from somebody else. One, you said to me once, I was ranting to him about a situation, and I basically told him the advice that I got given from my best friend, who is one of those friends that'll gas me up no matter what. And I feel like you need one of those. Everybody needs one of those.
Shout out to a friend.
Shout out to you, Illy. But then I relayed it to you, and then being the opposite presence that I needed, in the sense of like the person that gives it to me very straight, you said, life will go on around you no matter what, so you can stay stuck or you can go with it.
Yeah.
And that was so wild to me, because I was but like, it's genuinely true. And I thought about that, and I thought about the way I used to live, and like I would just get stuck, and I'm like, but fuck, like everything around me is going to go on. Like, what is me staying stuck going to do? Like, it's literally only going to negatively impact me. You know what I mean? So that was one.
That's great.
Shout out to you.
Yeah.
And then the other one was my nunu told me, actually. And my family is a very, like, the most important thing to me. So I've always taken everything they've said very close to heart, and like they've shaped a lot of who I am. But he said to me once, and the funny thing was, he actually said this to me a long time ago. Like, I was like a lot younger and I never understood it. But he said that respect was more important than love. And I never agreed with it, and nobody agreed with it. Like, everybody sat at this table, and I have an Italian family, so everybody disagreed with it. But now, like, looking at where I am and the decisions I've made and the relationships, like with my friends and like with the people around me, to me, it's so true. Like, and it's a big statement, and it's a big call, and it's not going to be true and real to everybody. But like, for me personally, it genuinely is. Like, I would rather your respect than your love. You know what I mean? Because somebody that loves you can still lie to you, go behind your back, can still like do all of these things to you, but like they can love you through all that. You know what I mean? But somebody that respects you, like, there's such a difference in love and respect. Like, there's a fine line, but that line is like fucking huge in impact. And I would much rather have the respect of somebody than love from them, because somebody that respects you is never going to put you in a position to be or feel disrespected. And that's one of my biggest things. Like, I will easily cut somebody off at the drop of a hat because of disrespect, no matter how much I love them. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
That's just, it's such an interesting concept about the people can do wrong by you and those from those that love you. Speaking from personal experience and just ticking over so many different situations I've experienced with clients and conversations I've listened to, I feel like the ones that love you are the ones that hurt you the most. So fucking shit, speaking from my experience, like even the root of why we're sitting down now coaching, like my dad being that. And just, it popped into my head straight away. It's like, yeah, so many people, like you can do so many wrong things whilst loving someone. But if you respect someone, respect demands a set of rules or dynamics that just don't allow those things to happen. That was sick. Fuck yeah. That's a good one. That's good.
Shout out to my nono for that.
Yeah. What a fucking weapon.
I know.
I like that. All right, go
on. Next thing I had was, what's something you tell yourself when you feel overwhelmed or in doubt?
Yeah. Weirdly enough, people might think I'm fucking crazy for saying this, but I feel like I have an unfair advantage. And again, it's just going to link back to my father's situation. Unfair as in, a lot of people probably wouldn't want to go through it, so maybe it's not unfair, but like I've been through worse before, so I'll get over it. I'll get through it. And this has been a really big struggle for me with relationships, especially intimate relationships. I've always struggled to connect in a way that a person becomes my life and I can't live without them. And that's just the experiences I've had that have wired my brain to be different. That if someone doesn't want to be in my life, whether I break up with them, they break up with me, whether this relationship crumbles, fails, whatever, like it falls back to the life moves forward. I've been through worse. I'll get over it. Like life moves on. They weren't there when my father's situation unfolded, and that, like, a young boy and a father, like that's probably the highest level of love or connection you'd get in life. I got through that. So I'm going to get through a relationship that's been going on for X amount of time. I'm going to get through someone fucking me over or disrespecting me. So I feel like it's just the thought process that I've been through worse before and I'm here now. So you'll do it again. I've posted it so many times. People forget that. It's like, you've been through it before. You can get through it. I always am called to mental health based, or if it's on the things of suicide or depression, it's like I can't live life, or I can't get over a situation, or I haven't been able to move through it. And I just ask the question, have you experienced it before? And sometimes, or a lot of the time, the answer is yeah. It's like, well, you've gotten through it. You can do it again. So that's probably my answer for that. What's yours?
I feel like every answer, like you have such like a really like nice, orchestrated, like very accountable answer, and mine are always softer. It's not like a bad thing. It's just an interesting contrast between, I think, who we are as people. Yep. And I think it comes from you having to coach so many people and hold them accountable to their shit.
Well, I write 20,000 words a week of accountability, and I have 30 hours of conversations based on accountability for the last 4 years.
I feel like it shows. I don't. Anyway, I feel like when I feel like overwhelmed or like I'm doubting something, again, like redirecting my thoughts from spiraling, which is like a default, you know what I mean, has always been no amount of anxiety can change the future and no amount of regret can change the past. And so when I'm like, either like I'm festering on something that's happened or I'm freaking out over something that's yet to, I'm like, well, what is this feeling going to change? Like, what is this overwhelm going to do for me right now? You know what I mean? And I think like on top of that, like on top of trying to stay centered in where I'm at now, it's like everything will work out as it needs to. You know what I mean? Like I've just learned to trust, because like things have happened to me that I'm like, how on earth could this be teaching me anything? And then I look back and I'm like, wow, my life is like massively different because of this experience. You know what I mean? And I think the last thing, and this is probably like the softer, but it's like the truth. I've always thought like if something like so catastrophic were to happen and I lost like everything I had, like that I'd built, you know what I mean? I have like a beautiful family. And when I say this, I'm like, it's not like a wide family, you know what I mean? Like I have plenty of issues with a lot of my family, but I have like, again, on one hand, group of immediate family members that I just like, I will always have, like they're my family. And I've like, whenever I've been going through something that I'm like, I'm going to lose all these people and I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't matter to me because I could lose everybody and still have them and I'd be okay. You know what I mean? And I think I genuinely feel for people that don't have that, because I know family is also the people you choose to.
Yeah.
Like I have family that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm fortunate enough that I've had family members that would go through like hell and back for me. And I'm like, whenever I've been in overwhelm, they have been there like through every hardship that I've experienced that has been like fucking horrible, that like not a lot of people would see out of. They are who I've fallen on, even when they didn't realize. And like a lot of people say to me like, oh, it's so nice you're so close with your grandparents or whatever. But it's like, I don't know, it doesn't even do it justice. Like I'm there every week, not because I feel obliged to, but because I want to be there and because they're such massive parts of my life and they mean the world to me. It's like no one can take that from me. You know what I mean? Apart from fucking death. Like nobody can take that away from me. And yeah, I just feel like that's always been something that's gotten me through as well, is just having that unit and that like knowing I have these people that are always going to support no matter what version of me I am.
I envy your solidification of that, because that's for me in the last 5 years been my hardest lesson to learn. And from recent situations in this year, I learned that nothing is more important than family, blood or chosen. And that's just something I hadn't seen for so long, but they're always there. And this isn't a universal rule. These are personal accounts, because some people might have a really bad family or not have a good support with family. But again, we specified chosen and blood, not just your blood relation. But just to quickly recount on something that I experienced is my pop passed away, my dad's dad, 2 years ago, and my biggest focus was fucking work. I worked that morning. I got changed. I went to the funeral. I fucking cried all day. I then got dressed and then I went back to work. So work for me was more of a priority than family. I still showed up and I still went, but my family had been seeing him a little more often leading up to it, and I was too busy. I was working too much. I was doing 80 hours. I was in such a state of obsession and perfectionism with work and business and growing it that I valued that over family. And I paid such an awful lesson learned, but it's one that I love that you know now, because I now know that myself.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Do you regret it?
Oh, it gave me goosebumps, man. It's always hard, because it's always hard to say you have regret, because I now know it. And that makes me cherish family now more than I would have. Fuck, that made I'm feeling my fucking lip quake a little bit. I'm feeling that.
Well, I know how like you and I have very similar views on regret.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to hear you reflect on it. And I just want to know.
I hold parts of regret, like, because ultimately a lesson I learned this year too is that work doesn't love you. So you can work with people for years and years, but I learned that I am a service to people, which is great. Like, I'm here to help people, but that at the cost of people that do love you. And so I hold some bits of regret, but not enough that outweigh. If I had the ability to change what happened, I wouldn't change it, because those that are in my life now, I just double down on a little bit more. Yeah.
I want to make a really random point on the emphasis of like chosen and blood family. But on the complete flip side of that, blood family isn't an excuse for people to mistreat you.
Yeah.
And like, I just feel like on the point of me being all like sappy and whatever, like, oh my God, I have such an amazing family. I do. But I have a whole other group of family members that I have completely cut out of my life for the purpose of like being mistreated and disrespected. So like, when I say family, I very much mean selected people.
Yeah.
I'm just fortunate enough that they're blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I should make that point.
Yeah. No, that's a good point to make.
Yeah.
The closer, the last question.
Oh my God, I feel like this isn't the most impactful one.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
definitely
We've fucking spat some really good points and answers.
go out with a bang, but it's like just like a fizzle, you know what I mean? No, my last question was just, how do you want to be remembered in like 100 years?
I know so many people are going to laugh at me for this.
I'm curious.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I think you might too. Like, everyone might call me a fanboy or whatever. One of my most favorite lyrics I've ever heard is, "My funeral's going to be lit for how I treated people."
Oh,
And that's a quote from Drake. But it's just, that's what I want to be remembered for. I want to be remembered for having helped people or impact lives, saved people, changed direction, impact big scale, small scale. I'd love to be remembered for being fucking millionaire, sports cars, a stage talker, famous on Instagram, all those fucking surface level or little goals I have along the way. But definitely as an overall, I feel my role as a human with what I've acquired as knowledge over my life, I owe it to people to help them and share what could change their life. And that's what I want to be remembered for the most. You.
I think you will be remembered for that.
I appreciate that.
I swear I've said this so many times. There's a theme, but I've always known that I wanted to be successful, but in like what I never knew for a long time. And I always knew that it was going to have something to do with people. And I realized like over time that the success wasn't the end goal for me. It was having the success and the platform to make an influence
Yeah.
and then have an influence big enough that it was heard and made an impact, no matter how like small, large scale. And then with that influence and impact was even just like in the most minute way possible, but just some way on a scale, just literally promote peace. Like, I know it's like, it's such a simple thing. And I feel like one of those beauty pageant people that's like, what do you want? World peace. But it's true. Like, it's so fucking like true because like, I don't even turn the news on. You know what I mean? Like, I hate just seeing like anything that goes on in humanity, but I'm that person that wakes up at 5 a.m. and looks on my TikTok and has those either like happy dog videos or like kind acts of humanity.
Yeah.
And I sit there crying.
Yeah.
Because they literally make me so fucking warm and fuzzy. And it's just like, I just feel like I want people to remember more of that. And I know some people have been subject to the complete opposite in their lives. And like, there's such horrific fucking things going on in the world. And like, when you come from like, you know, like a small town, you like can be so naive to what actually goes on. And like, you get so caught up and you think your little like issues are so prevalent, but like, fuck, the main thing that I just want for everybody is just fucking peace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
World peace. I want to be remembered for promoting world peace. That's what I want to be remembered for.
Yeah. That's, again, so interesting. Knowing you so intimately in the sense of knowing your changes, knowing what you've worked hard on and having seen your highs and lows, your answers to everything we've talked about today is just such a solidification of who I know. Like, nothing of what you've said has been said in a way that's presenting or I'm sitting here going, fuck, that's not who you are. Like, everything is just so genuine and so pure. And I know your next course of life is personal training and coaching. And I know that will 100% develop into semi-lifestyle coaching and life coaching because you just will hold that power. And that's going to be really sick. But I'm going to wrap it up at that. Because I think a part 2 in the future, which I feel like I'm almost been saying this from every episode I do with someone, because anyone who comes on is someone I cherish and respect and I love having conversations with. But I'm going to link Zoe's personal and coaching page in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, please, if you can. If you're if you're listening on Spotify, share it to your stories if you're interested in it, if you want someone to listen to it. If you have any questions about the episode or any comments, you can message either one of us or you can drop it down in the comments yourself. But I appreciate you tuning in for episode 6 of season 3. The second longest episode I feel like I've done, which, we did fucking good. But I appreciate you coming on and I'm really proud of what you shared today.
Thank you.
Fuck
Thanks
yeah.
for having me. That was good. I feel stimulated intellectually.